This is a very informal sort of a test drive for me. But I do want to kind of check on a couple of things. How many people here have done the online 4 pillars training? Done the online training?
You mean listen to it?
Yes.
Watch it?
Right? No? 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 And you came here just on faith, right? Because you didn't even see that.
Somebody sold me.
Okay. Put a gun to your head and said, pardon me?
The name Wellner did it.
Good. Well, thank you.
That's good.
Good. I thought I was all riding on the coattails of the real estate show, but if the name Wilner sells it, I just suddenly got a new burst of confidence and I'm more enthusiastic. So everyone here, other than perhaps you, have you heard the real estate radio show?
Just briefly.
So you've actually heard it, and you know that it does exist.
From Mr. Wilner.
Oh, okay. So you heard of it, not it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
I went to the website.
But I think everybody else, have you heard the show, both of you?
I heard it this morning.
So she's the one who put the gun to your head to come here, right? Good,
I've been
good.
listening for.
Paul, have you had a chance to hear it yet?
I had, unfortunately, a chance to.
Did you know that there is one?
But you
Okay.
did tell me exactly.
Okay. All kidding aside, the real estate show this coming April 1st is going to hit a huge milestone. It is going to celebrate its 20th consecutive year. And I emphasize consecutive. It is now not only America's longest running daily radio show about real estate, but it's also survived, great ups and even more so the great downs. And I think now, we've come out of a very difficult real estate market, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the markets tonight. But I think that one of the things that I'm most proud of is that it's had a following for that long. And some people actually remember when it started out, and I started out with a partner of mine. At one time, people would remember, oh, that's the show with the American and the British guy. And my partner, who unfortunately passed away, was from Britain. And the two of us would be talking about real estate. And at the time when the market was at its peak, we were on 3 different networks. Today I'm on 3 different stations, but part of the same network. But at one time we were at 3 different networks. Today I don't know whether I'm more or less, if you would consider the fact that now that we're on the internet, which we're now on iHeartRadio, which carries the shows everywhere and all the time. So I think our reach is a lot greater today. We're on iHeartRadio, we're on TuneIn, we're on a number of the apps that we talk about so you can listen to it. We have been for the last 3 years now archiving the shows so that if you're not an early bird riser to hear the show, which is live 5 days a week from 8 until 8:30, you can listen to any read broadcast that for the last 3 years, because after we do the show, it's recorded, and then I have a virtual assistant who then posts it up on my Facebook page. So there's a Facebook page called The Real Estate Show. No spaces, no hyphens, it's just The Real Estate Show. And so you can go and listen to that show whenever you want on demand. And it's been a long-standing project, but looks like now it's going to actually come about, where we're going to be launching a podcast version of The Real Estate Show, and you're going to be able to see that on iTunes pretty soon. So as the old commercial said, it's come a long way, baby. And it's also evolved over the years. Today, what we've kind of done is, since it's 5 days a week, we theme each day of the week, because we know that we appeal to different markets and different types of people. Monday, we talk more from the business aspect of running a business, creating real estate as a business, treating it and running it like a business. And that way, you can create additional income. There's a lot of different reasons why people get started in real estate. Some just to live, others to literally walk away. And I'll tell you that I have a number of clients who have come to me over the course for consulting, and quite literally and verbally told me, Eric, I want to quit my job, and I have helped them to do that. I kid around that I think I've been unemployed for a little over 30 years in the real estate business, and it's I don't consider it work, which is why I said that I've been unemployed absolutely I wake up in the morning, I prepare for the radio show, I do the radio show each and every day. When I get done with the radio show, I write a blog about the radio show. Then I get on the phone and I basically teach and consult all day long by phone. And then that evolved into clients calling me to come help them start a real estate business. So most of my time is spent now consulting and teaching people how to invest in real estate. And I fly literally all over the country, from Seattle to, Maine and New Hampshire, all over. I know Florida now extremely well, from Central Florida to North Florida to South Florida. And that is a large part of what I do, and I travel quite frequently. And if you are a regular listener of the radio show, you'll hear that I'll say, good morning from Ocala, good morning from Seattle, good morning from Detroit. And what I think that I have differentiated myself, having an engineering background, is being very analytical in analyzing markets. And I'll tell you that you could blindfold me, and I someday I wish one of the media would take me up on the challenge. But you could blindfold me, drop me in this city without me knowing where it was, but give me the data. Within 24 hours, I will figure out the best markets in that city, as good as anybody who lives there, and I will focus it down to the zip code, right down to the neighborhood, and I will even go straight to the houses that are the best deals in the marketplace, and I can do that in 48 hours. So what I wanted to do tonight, I have a half-hour show 5 days a week, and I'll tell you that half an hour goes like this. One of the funniest things that people say to me, and I'm asked to speak at different events from time to time, and they said, Eric, do you think you could talk for 5 minutes? Now, for 20 years, I've been talking to myself for 30 minutes at a time, so I think I can talk for 5 minutes. So if your guys are not careful, set an alarm for maybe, 9:30, 10 o'clock tonight? So that I stop? Because otherwise I'll go on. I'll definitely go on. But what I wanted to do, in fact, before I tell you what I wanted to do, tell me a little bit about, because let's just call tonight's little workshop a beta. Okay, this is a test drive, as much as for me as it probably is for you. You guys are probably curious and said, and by the way, thanks again, because you really came here purely on no details and faith. So I want to go around the room really quick, but tell me why are you here? What would you like to see happen tonight, or what do you think is going to happen?
Well,
And I'm going to write some of this stuff down. So you drove all the way from Plantation, so it wasn't for the wine, right? What is it that you would like to see? Because then maybe I would like to make sure that, well, if it has to do with real estate, that's the first rule.
right.
Maybe I'll cover it.
Well, I watched the online version of the
Four
Four
Pillars.
Pillars,
Yes.
and I, observed some of the deals that Mr. Dunn, what's his name again?
Cameron Dunlap,
Cameron Dunn, did.
who originally developed Four Pillars.
Right. So I'd like to learn some of those deals, because God knows I love taking care of my residents, but I still want to be able to travel and have a life.
You want to learn about deals.
Yep.
And when you say about, is that like how to do them, or what is it about the deals that you want to learn?
How to do them, how to make the money that he's making.
So how to. Okay, got it. Mr. Mercator.
Okay. You know that I came because I have one or two clients that are going to be interested in your product. So, but they are not here. So I have to know about the four pillars in order that when they arrive,
So
okay,
what is the Four Pillars? Is that it?
yeah,
Okay, perfect. So get ready, I'm coming to you. Why is it that you came here?
Basically to absorb as much knowledge as I can on everything. I mean, I really am not, I tried to do the real estate course a couple of times, and I really never even got to get the test because different circumstances in life, but I've always been very interested in real estate. And I have like a kind of like a passion. even though I don't do it, I have a passion on helping people to find a house or, being always aware of everything, so.
Are you an agent? Are you?
No.
So,
I am in sales, but not in real estate sales.
okay, very good, very good. So, tonight you're hoping to see a path,
Maybe
Okay.
something I can follow.
okay? That's one of my specialties, by the way, so that's good.
Actually, her enthusiasm. She always told me that, she hears you always in the mornings, and I thought it was very interesting, so.
Yes, it drives her crazy. She says, how do you wake up in a good mood like that every day? So thank you. And but is it something that is there something in
Sure,
real
it
estate?
interests me, of course, so information,
Same
sure,
thing?
yes.
Okay.
I'd like to learn about commercial real estate investments. In particular, the due diligence part seems to be a little bit challenging.
Okay, so I said we were gonna be done at 10, this is gonna go to about 2 o'clock in the morning, okay? Because we're going to a whole different aspect. And to be quite fair, I'm gonna talk about investing, to the investment side. So some people say commercial and investment interchangeably, but some people talk about commercials being multi-units, office buildings and things like that. And so I won't talk about commercial buildings per se tonight. But it's not that I won't, and it's not that we don't do those deals.
Okay.
Okay, so but I will talk to it from a point of view of investment. Real estate as an investment. Fair?
Absolutely. Investments are always good.
Okay. Sarah.
I am here purely because of the Wilmer effect.
Okay, good. So.
Thank you very much.
Well-known effect. And then what I'm gonna see, and you'll be the judge, if I have it.
my own answer.
Well, that's one.
I'm here because I
There's
don't know
gonna be a
any.
bunch of very good-looking people, and Paul's a photographer, so he's looking for good faces.
Thanks for the plug.
You're welcome.
I'm also curious. I'm on the investment side, but I've always wanted to hear the angle of in real estate. Since
Okay.
the only thing I know about real estate is that I own a home.
Okay. Okay, so that would be real estate as an investment there as well. So I'm gonna say that too. Okay, Barbara?
Hi, I'm here.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm here to learn, and I would like to know how to invest, and so I can earn income from my real estate business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nastasia?
I want to learn about the business, and my mom says you're the best person to learn it from. So
Thank you,
I'm
and thank you. Okay, so I'm actually gonna see that as the same thing, and Andre, right?
Yes, Andre. Just a curious mind.
Just a curious mind
Yes.
and free air conditioning.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm gonna put that under what is for peddlers, right? Fair enough? Okay. Hi,
Hi.
your name is?
Represent my husband, Thomas Yin.
The little chair here.
Okay.
May I set up this chair for you?
Thank you.
Everybody just finished doing a 15-minute bio, so it's your turn.
Oh, sit right here. Well, my husband's not here, I'm here for him.
Okay, it's a story, the man always shows up late. We were just going around the table and asking, what is it that brought you here? What is it that you're looking to learn here tonight?
But he's not here tonight, so we're gonna learn.
Oh, so you're here because he said, meet me at this strange office building?
No, he's currently in Canada, so he sent me an email and then said to me to attend. But,
So he's really gonna be late.
Well, he's switching from as a librarian, he wanna get into real estate.
Good. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about real estate as an investment as well. Did I cover? I think I covered everybody except for you, sir. What brought you here? Wilmer effect.
Since I'm helping companies to start businesses, I would like to have an option that the people are investors and make money in real estate. I just want to add a product to my offer.
So I'm gonna add that. So it seems, if this were considered an official poll, that the most important reason why people are here, and it's just an observation, is that because people here are looking for an investment vehicle that has a better opportunity than most investment vehicles out there, that has a more secure or stable opportunity than most investments out there. Because I will tell you that in, not only I think in my opinion, but you'll hear a lot of people say that real estate is probably the closest thing to the ideal investment. And when I say about the ideal investment, compare this to any other investment that you may have or that you may consider. And that is, number one, real estate provides current income, right? Some investments you buy gold and you have to wait someday for it to appreciate, or you buy bonds and you have to wait someday for the bond to mature. Real estate offers very current, immediate, spendable, the kind of money that you can actually take to the grocery store and buy things with. Real estate offers tax advantages unparalleled to other investment vehicles out there. This is just simply no comparison to all of the tax benefits. The most common one that everybody knows about is depreciation, right? And depreciation, if you think about it, is a very cool write-off that you have, or an expense that you could take, because I don't actually have to write a check to get it. I always get a kick out of people who spend extra money, and they said, but it's a write-off. Well, you spend $1 to get a 20-cent write-off. Does that make sense? Well, I'd rather spend $0 to get a 20-cent or $20 write-off. And so you have a lot of really interesting tax benefits, and even through all of the administrations, and especially the current one where we have a real estate friendly president, that all of the benefits that have been given to real estate are still consistent. Yes, sir.
Sorry, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but is it true that they're getting rid of the interest deduction, or they're at least attempting to do so? The interest on
I
mortgages?
don't think so. It survived the last cut unless there's some new proposal. But what they did is that they limited it. And so it used to be unlimited, then I believe they cap it on $1 million. Okay. We have some good tax experts in the room too. But right now I believe it's on mortgages up to $1 million, for example, on residential, on the mortgage interest deduction. If it's on a commercial building, if it's on an investment property, no such limitation, right? There's no limit. If I have a $5 million building, or a $20 million or a $100 million building, they don't cap my interest deduction. It's an expense that's part of the business. So, good question. In addition to so we talked about the income advantage, we talked about the tax advantage. Also, real estate has a sneaky way of building up equity, right? If I have a mortgage and then my tenants pay down that mortgage, there's an equity buildup. No matter what the market's doing, up, down, or flat, there's an equity buildup that happens through the systematic pay down of an amortizing mortgage. So you've got that advantage also. Then, not every market has this, but we have something called appreciation. And right now, we've got appreciation. And that means that the asset itself, regardless of what you're doing, the asset value is going up. And remember, real estate is a hard asset. Two things. One is that they're not making more of it. They're making more buildings, but land, that's it, right? So it's a scarce commodity with an ever-increasing demand. The population in the world, is it going up or going down? Up, astronomically up. So more people and more demand. And then finally, the other advantage that real estate has, over and above, superior to all other investments, is the ability to leverage up to 100% of it. Now, I'm not condoning or advising 100%. There's something called positive leverage, negative leverage, but the fact that you can control a large asset with a relatively small down payment. So for example, if I had $10,000 to invest and I didn't have leverage and I got a 5% return on that $10,000, I would make $500. $500. If I had $10,000 and bought a $100,000 property by putting 10% down, and the property went up 5%, 100,000, now I have 5,000, what would you rather make? $500 or $5,000? And that's because of leverage. So that's why I talk about when you think about the other alternative investments that you might be thinking, because ultimately there's something called the opportunity cost of money. I have a certain amount of money, and if I invest in one thing, I can't, and I'm not investing in something else. So you want to have the opportunity cost. You want the money to be at the best place, and that's where you hear the expression that smart money always finds the best opportunities. And it's also pretty evident that smart money always finds real estate. So for those of you, you are not, you're in the majority here, but I think you're also in the majority in the world and in the marketplace. So I just wanted to kind of take a little bit of a temperature check to find out why you all were here, and make sure that I can answer a lot of these questions. So what I wanted to do, and I had a little bit of an outline, and I'm going to try to stay true and on time. My goal is to be done at 9 o'clock, and I know that although it's 2 hours, and I will give you a lot of stuff. When most of my clients that contract me, I spend 2 full days with them. So I will fly to any of these places, to Chicago, and then we will spend 2 entire days. So I have a lot of time to fill, right? But invariably, and I'll put some of the testimonials up on my website in the next coming weeks, because I've done this very low key. And one of the things that I hope that you'll say tonight, I want you to walk away saying at least 2 things. Number one, it was worth my time spent coming here. I want you to feel that you got value, and that you fully feel like you've got the cost of the admission. Right? I'm setting the barrier pretty low, aren't I? So that's one thing. I want you to feel that, wow, I think Eric does know what he's talking about, and it was time well spent, and I want to spend more time with Eric. And that's because secretly, don't tell anybody. But what I'm really looking to do is I'm going to create what I'm going to call an inner circle, and I want to work with some local investors here, and I'm going to show you why I'm going to break the model. The reason that people go to real estate seminars, and they go by the boatload, they fill hotel rooms, and they go in there, and they offer a free seminar. By the way, this is not that kind of a thing. I am not here to sell you to go to my next seminar, which for 2 days you'll pay $1,500, and I'm going to tell you at the $1,500 what I didn't tell you today, which at the $1,500 seminar, what I'm going to tell you is that you need to come to my $3,000 seminar, because that's where I'm really going to tell you. And when you get to the $3,000 seminar, I'm going to tell you that, well, if you're really serious about this business, then you need to pay me $25,000 to be part of my university. Okay, and that's the problem with the system out there, and that's why I'm not a part of that. And what I'm going to tell you today, I'm going to open the door, and I'm going to basically tell you what I'm doing. Okay, and you might be saying, like, Eric, why would you tell everybody, and for free, why would you tell everybody what you do? Because I know a couple of things. Number one is that, you know, the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of the people won't do anything with it anyway. So my poorly kept secrets are still safe, because people won't do it, right? But I'm looking for that 20% that will be my eyes and ears in the field, that I can work together with them. Okay, good. I like action tape. I know you are. And so that's sort of my secret agenda, in case you're wondering, like, why is Eric doing this when, and I'll even tell you that people pay $20,000 for me to go and spend 2 days with them. That's what the going rate is. And I'm not going to ask anybody here for $20,000, okay? I will accept it, but I'm not going to ask for it. So anyway, so that's what I wanted to say. You know, I have a little outline to keep me straight and on time. But that's item number one, is a little bit of open. I wanted to tell you that this is going to be like nothing that you've been to before. There's no upsell here whatsoever. This is simply, I'm going to tell you what I do. I'm going to give you access. The reason I told you about the 4 pillars training online is that I try to make it as easy and as accessible as possible to anybody who wants to do it, who wants to use the same tools. Now, you starting out wouldn't be able to afford all of the tools that I use. You know, I have a lot of access to data. I have a lot of things, subscriptions that I do to get access to the information. Luckily, because I have a radio show, because I work with people like Cam, that I have access to a lot of people that the average person won't. But here's a chance to kind of ride on my coattails, if you will, if you're willing to do a little bit of legwork. So, like nothing, that is everything going on. Quick question. How do you think the real estate market is doing right now? By show of hand, who thinks it's going up, point up? Who thinks it's going down, point down? And who thinks that it's going flat? Karate chop the person next to you.
I think.
Okay. So I'd say slightly more than flat. People think up. Some people say flat to going down, and the thing about real estate, first of all, is that real estate is not the same everywhere, which is one of the really cool opportunities about real estate. Because when things go bad over here, I can go spend more time over there. And if you have access to the data, if you know, like I said, I can in 24 hours figure out, well, this is the good area, and go there, let's go spend some time there before everybody figures it out. And then when everybody figures it out, then I'll go to the next place and be a little bit ahead of the curve. But I'll tell you that we've had a good run, you know, in the marketplace. There's a couple of interesting things happening inside of the market right now that are not being talked about. Okay, first of all, who here has heard the term or the expression shadow inventory? Anybody heard that? Wow. One person in the room. When the market was at its most dismal, and by the way, you know what that proves to me? And it's something that I said all along, but it proves to me that it's true, is that when the market got really bad, people weren't even listening, right? They were so upset with real estate, so scared of real estate, you couldn't give real estate away. P.S. When the next one comes, be ready, okay? Because it's an opportunity. People were giving properties away, and other people wouldn't accept it. Wouldn't accept it because they were so scared about real estate. Now imagine if you had accepted that property, where would you be today? Okay, I'll tell you that in the hot markets that were hot there, the ones that crashed the most, those are the ones today that are right back where they were. 100% recovery. 100% plus in some cases. California is doing better. Certain areas of Florida, if you're on the east side of town, if you have, you know, the nicer waterfront, the A properties will always be A. And so you have that recovery. Some of the areas that were artificially, that got raised with the tide, that should never have gotten raised as high as they did, still haven't recovered. But the shadow inventory, what it was, is that when all of the banks had taken, were taking properties back, and there was all this inventory that wasn't on the market. The banks took it back, but they didn't put it back on the market. And so you could Google and look up the term, and it was all over the news for like 2 years, and they were talking about back in 2009 and 2010, just to give you a reference, that they predicted there was about a 15-year overhang of inventory that was going to kill the market. And so the banks, wisely so, and I don't know if you remember people always saying, like, how stupid are the banks? How come they're not coming to get the houses? They're letting somebody live in the house for 4 years without paying a mortgage. Do you ever hear that conversation? And do you think that the banks really were stupid? In fact, I still don't understand why people aren't complaining why the banks, too big to fail, were on the brink of collapse, and 6 months later had record profits thanks to the government bailout. That was the TARP program. I used to call it the world's biggest cover-up. The banks and the government working together. It was the biggest shift of wealth in history, where the banks, they wanted to get rid of a lot of the mortgage brokers, and they shook them out. The banks wanted to get into the real estate market, and they knew that they could. And the reason that they didn't foreclose, because they got free property management. It's a lot easier to know you're behind on your payments, I've got a default judgment on you, but I don't actually kick you out so that someone doesn't come and steal the air conditioner, rob all the copper pipes, and the house doesn't get vandalized. It's easier to let you live and think that you're taking advantage of the bank. They're getting free property management and waiting for the market to come back. What's happening right now, and this, by the way, is the secret reason why you're starting to see the market slow down. I heard the chief economist of the National Association of Realtors say 2 weeks ago, saying that he believes, and I think he's got inside information. He said, I believe that the worst of the inventory crunch is over. And I believe he's right. The reason being is that the banks are starting to release some of that shadow inventory in there on a methodical method. But what that does is it keeps property values in check, which personally I think is great news. Because I don't want to see 20, 30% appreciation. Right before the crash, we had three straight years of 20+% appreciation, like 25, 28, and 30%, 3 years in a row. And even back then, I had no idea how bad the market was going to go down, but I said the market's going down now because it's unsustainable to have that kind of appreciation. I beg, I say, I get on my knees every night before I go to bed, and I say, please keep appreciation low. Keep it low. Why? A, because it's sustainable. B, is that I want to buy more property. Because there's no question in my mind, ups and downs are going to come, but the real estate over the long course of time is going to be absolutely the place to go. It always is, it always has been, and it always will be, because they're not making any more. People have to live and they have to work somewhere. As virtual as we get, we still have to go lay down. We need at least about 6 feet of space. So places might get smaller and more compact when the more billions of Chinese move to the United States. But the fact of the matter is that demand is going to go up, and that's the fact. So there's two things going on in the marketplace that are going to slow it down, and I'm happy about that. And secretly, I'll even tell you that I wouldn't mind a bit of a pullback in the marketplace. And trust me that I will be talking to all my investors saying, buy, 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 more. No, that's a song. I think I heard that one before too. But between the inventory that's coming into the market that people didn't really realize was there, between new construction, now that everybody sees construction happening, for 10 years there was no construction. It was dead. There was no construction. And you could probably pick out archives of my radio show where I was saying that if you can buy a house for less than what it costs to build, okay, then buy it, because it's only a matter of time when this cycle comes up, and they will never build as long as it's cheaper to buy existing than it is to build. So that's changed now, right? Now there's a premium, and so builders are back. And there's a premium for new houses, and there usually is a premium. People would rather have something brand new than something used, and so those economics are back. So between the shadow and the overhang market, number one, between the rising interest rates, and we have had for, again, about 10 years, artificially low interest rates, okay? And so I think wisely so, the government they said they were going to raise interest rates 3 times this year. They've done it once so far. Expect it to go up, and So between the rising and the rising prices, of course, property taxes lag 1 year. So next year, property taxes are going to be more expensive. So affordability is going to be a common conversation in the next 12 to 24 months. So that's the good news. Also the good news is I don't predict that there's going to be another 2008, because the situation is not there. We were way over leveraged. Anybody who could fog a mirror could get a loan. Today, they're very particular. The loans that have been made over the last 10 years are all pretty good loans. They basically cherry pick the best of the borrowers, and so you've got a lot more solid. You've got a market that went up, so the inventory or the collateral is more collateralized. The borrowers are much more solid. The economy is growing in terms of jobs and income. So as far as a level off and maybe a little bit of a pullback, probably, and I don't know exactly when. My job isn't to predict exactly when. My job is to take advantage of those opportunities as they come. But always remember one rule in real estate is cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. If it doesn't have cash flow, stay away. And I remember right before the market crashing, people were saying like, "Oh yeah, I bought this house. It's only losing $400 a month, but in 90 days from now, I'm gonna sell it for $100,000 more. That was a game of musical chairs, and when the music stopped, people got caught, and they had these properties only losing $400 a month, but eating them alive. And the people who basically lost the properties were because those are properties that weren't cash flowing. So that's what I just wanted to talk a little bit about the marketplace. And I'm going to tell you that because of that, there's an opportunity, and you want to take advantage. Oh, and I forgot one little detail that also will affect, and the old thing about Economics 101, which is supply and demand. Supply, limited, still behind the curve and on construction. Demand, getting ready to grow and jump up when the millennials now who are getting to their better earning years, who are getting more serious and now are going to start families and want homes. So you're going to see that demand go up significantly. So that's why I think you might have a slowdown in all of these things, but not that big of a dip, because the fundamentals of the marketplace, barring some crazy terrorist attack or war or something like that, I think that the light is basically green. A little tint of yellow in it, but it's green. All right. Back to the fundamentals: buy good properties that have good cash flow. So I covered 1, 2, and 3. The next thing I want to kind of talk about, and especially for those of you who are looking at real estate as an investment, and then I'm going to basically transition out of theory and then get into the process. When I talk to people about real estate, there's lots of different styles of investing, right? You've heard of buying a property and immediately reselling it, which is wholesaling. You've heard of people buying contracts and selling the contract without ever closing on the property themselves. You've heard of people buying and then fixing a property and then immediately selling it, which is now, it used to be known as rehabbing a property or fix and flip, but TV has made such a thing out of the word flipping that what we used to call flipping was when I bought this contract and then I went over and I sold it. I bought this contract for $100,000. I sell it to you for $110, and if it's worth $150, that was a great deal for both of us. I made a quick dollar flipping the contract to her. But now TV, I can't tell half the time whether they're talking about just reselling the contract or whether they're buying the house, fixing it, and then flipping it. But that's what you hear. So that's another style. And so I call that the ladder. And you're going to hear me focus a lot on the word wholesaling. And I'm going to tell you because that's the first step on the ladder. And the reason that it's important, and a lot of people don't like wholesaling real estate, because there's work and you've got to uncover and find the good deals in the marketplace, and particularly in a marketplace like now where there's more buyers than there are sellers, then it's kind of hard to find somebody that will discount a property 50 cents on the dollar when there's other people having bidding wars on properties in order to get them. So anybody of sound mind, if they just do things logically, put the house on the market and price it at a fair price, can sell the property pretty quickly in today's marketplace. And I say that in the market from 400 and below. When you get into the higher price, we're already seeing the slowdown in the $1 million properties because, of course, there's just less people that can buy $1 million properties. And so that's the first area, and that's sort of like the tip-off of what's going on. So if you were to take a stair-step ladder, the first area, which we call the wholesaling, is the object of the game is to buy a property somewhere between 60 and 65% of its value. Okay, that's a challenge, especially in today's market. So what this person who's good at this, and I'm going to submit to you that you should get good at this. And if you're not good at this, try to get good at this. Because if you're good at this, the way that this ladder works is this guy can do everything up here. But as you start to go up the ladder here, then you'll see that you have fewer options. So the wholesaler, he's really what I call a good finder. He's a good networker. and that person is good at getting information that maybe other people can't get, or getting to people that other people don't get to. And the next level, and who they usually buy, this is what I was talking about, selling a contract or selling quickly. This person, the advantage, if you're good at this, you can do this with 0 cash. You can do this with 0 credit. So that pretty much opens the door to everybody, which is why a lot of these real estate companies start out selling this as an idea. Oh, anybody can do it. It's so easy. It's not. But the fact of the matter is, anybody could do it. The question is, will they? The next, and when the wholesaler finds a property, and let's just use for the examples today, they find a $100,000 property. They buy it for $60,000. Okay, think about a $100,000 house, and I find that property, and then I turn around and I sell it for 70% or $70,000. Would I find a lot of buyers willing to buy a house at 70 cents on the dollar today? The answer is yes, very much so. So, but this here, I also call this the quick nickel. I'm looking at making small amounts frequently. So I find this property, and as soon as I find it, I got a waiting list of people who will buy this from me, who will pay me $10,000 to take over my contract. That's called an assignment of contract. Or they might, I might have to close on it and then resell it to them. But this person here is the rehabber, right? Some people will call him a flipper, not to be confused with the dolphin. But this person here pays cash. To get that deal, he's going to pay cash. And who typically are these people are contractors, real estate investors that buy, fix up, and sell houses. So this guy here, his main talent is he's a good project manager. He managed the construction, getting the plumbers, the electricians, and all of these different people there working. And so if he's a good project manager who's on site making sure that people are doing the job and the project is moving ahead, does he have time to be out there networking and cruising the neighborhoods and negotiating with people? Not the good ones. And so what they want to find a good finder, a good wholesaler, and they'll say things to me like, Eric, next time you find another property like that, call me first. Because I won't ask you questions. This person here never picks up a hammer, never picks up a paintbrush, doesn't do any work. They buy everything as is. This guy buys from him as is, right? So I might as well put that down as a as is. Now, what does he do with it, typically?
Fix this.
Right? He fixes it, and he does one of two things. He either sells it to this guy, or he sells it to this guy. And this guy here is the landlord, right? What he's looking for, and by the way, what this person here, this is what he's looking for. He's looking for a fast profit. This one here is looking for a bigger profit. So both of these guys are looking at ROI. This guy here, what does the landlord, what's he really looking for? Yes, you're right, absolutely right. He's looking for cash flow, right? So he's looking for also ROI on a long-term basis. So with this guy, he's a good investor. He is analytical. He's a good manager. And he has nerves of steel. You see the difference in the latter? And it's really important to understand this because you can't really be both. You can't be more than one of these things at the same time. You can transition from one to the other, but the problem that I often see is somebody's looking for this to be that, right? And the cool thing about it is this, and in fact, so who does the landlord, when the landlord decides to sell, he paid 80%, or this, the contractor, when he does the rehab, who do they use, who's the end of the line that they can sell to? The homeowner, right? The end user, or the homeowner. And what does the homeowner, what are they looking for? Wow, look at me, curb appeal, a place to nest, right? That's what they're looking for. The homeowner is looking for personal use, right? Use, the American dream. And they'll pay 100% market value, right? They'll compete at a listing to get there, to live in the right neighborhoods with the right schools, with the pretty, granite countertops and stainless steel refrigerators. That's what they want. They want to be able to bring their friends over and say, hey, look at my house, right? That's what they're looking for. So they are obviously the homeowner, the user. Now, is that the top of the ladder?
No.
Why? Because I left a drawing up there?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Who's at the top? Who's at the top of the ladder? No, but you're on the right path.
Probably does.
Who would pay 110
resell?
percent?
A company.
Not a smart company. Why would somebody overpay for a property?
I don't know.
They're gonna knock it down.
Estate and stuff.
But then, you're on the right path in terms of the way that you're thinking. But what you're assuming is that it's 110. The asking price is less than what the real market is, because the only reason you would knock it down is because the land is now worth more than probably the house is, and it's time to wipe the chalkboard clean and put something up, and it's time for a McMansion or something. You're on the right track, but I'm assuming that if the real value of the property was $100,000, that's the fair market value. And that's why I use these percentages, because it's easier for us to keep that in mind. Why would somebody overpay for a property?
They want the property
They feel
because there's more than one
appreciation.
buyer and they want.
What I call my scratch and dent buyers. Okay, people who have bad credit. If I decide to say, listen, I'll finance the house to you, but I'm not going to sell for 100. I'm going to sell for 110. And if you can afford it, you'll say, listen, I have no other choice. The banks won't talk to me. So this is a chance for me to become a homeowner. Paying 10% over market price is not a big deal, right? And I'll give you the other. Those are people with bad credit, but good cash flow. Those are people with new businesses. If you're a business owner and you don't have 2 years of tax returns, what bank will finance you? None. Now, what if you, and they're my least favorite business out there, what if you open up a new vape shop on the corner, right? And those businesses are killing it, right? They're making great money. And but the guy has plenty of cash flow, can afford the house that he wants, but he can't get a loan. If you own a bar, banks don't, I don't care how many years you own it, banks don't want to give you a loan because they don't like that business. You own a strip club, you're not going to get a loan from the bank.
Is that due to the volatility of it or what?
PR is part of it. They don't want to get involved in that business, and then there's other questions. I'm just trying to like radicalize the example, but there's other businesses that banks just simply don't want to touch. The marijuana business right now, the biggest problem is that the marijuana vendors, right, the dispensaries, it's all cash. They can't get merchant accounts, they can't get loans, and because the banks won't allow it. So this is what I just wanted to illustrate here, that there's a ladder, and you could become an expert and make a great living in any one of these segments. There are people that just live right here. They buy, fix up, and resell. They buy another one, fix it up, resell it. There's people that you probably don't run into very often that sit at home buying properties, and they find properties, and all they're doing is pushing out to their list of investors and selling those properties. And so what I just want you to be, number one, is very clear and aware of the ladder, because it's out there, it exists. Nobody talks about it. You ever heard anybody else talk about this?
No.
Right? Because they don't want to. They don't want to teach you everything. If you get good here, and that's why you want to get good here, you want to be able to be one of the people, and that's why I focus a lot here, because here's what happens. Let's say that I find this, and most of the time, these properties are scratch and dent properties. You got the scratch and dent borrowers here, but you got scratch and dent properties here. The way that you get the biggest discounts on properties is there's something wrong with it. And if you find properties that have really motivated owners in them because the property is in terrible disrepair, or maybe the owner is in terrible disrepair, death, disease, divorce, bankruptcy, drugs, those are all reasons why people become very motivated sellers. But sometimes the house is in perfect shape. I find houses that I can buy like this, that the house is in perfect shape. When that happens, I can skip selling to this guy. If the house is in bad shape, this is who I want to sell to. If the house is in fair to middle shape, if it's rentable, I sell it to this guy. If the house is in perfect shape and I buy it with really good terms, and that's a whole other thing, because here, as the seller, and that's why I told, and I'm sorry, your name again was? Jackie. You were on the right track, because if I can be the bank, I can sell for more than the property's value by offering my banking services, by holding the financing. I could buy it at 60%, sell it to them for 110%, and collect, even if they owed $60,000 and I took over their loan, or paid off their loan, or borrowed 60% to buy this, and then marked it up 50%, still a good deal. And then all of that cash flow, it's basically creating equity and creating cash flow out of thin air. So if you understand that, and then you know what to do. A lot of, you've heard of investors that they buy a property and they can't sell it because they don't understand this. And I want you guys to understand that. Cool?
Yeah.
Good stuff? Great. So that's the ladder that I want to talk about. Now I want to talk about one other thing. And if you guys like to read, I read a book just recently on my way back from Europe called The Dip.
Yeah.
The Dip. Okay? And this line here is the dip. And the dip is this. People love going to real estate workshops. They love learning about real estate. And if this was a chart, make believe that this was your y-axis and this is your x-axis. This is effort. And this is reward, happiness, and everything. In the beginning, when I go to these classes and I study real estate and I do all the courses and everything, it's fun, right? So I put the effort in, I'm enjoying it, my mind is expanding, I'm learning, and everything is good. And then you get out of the learning phase and you have to do the business. And I haven't seen it happen in the 30 years. And I have, while I find great deals, and I'm looking for this to happen, no one has come to my house knocked on the door and asked me if I would please buy their property. They don't come looking for me. I always have to go looking for them. And so do you. And so what happens is that people start doing that, and then they got to make the phone calls to call people to see if they're interested in selling their house. They send out mail, direct mail. Who's gotten a direct mail piece, a postcard, a letter, a flyer saying, I want to buy your house? Okay? And how many of you replied to those? 100% of you didn't, right? And that happens all the time. And then imagine now you're the person who sent out that thing, that brochure, that postcard, that flyer. And then you get frustrated. The people on the phone don't answer. Who answers their phone when you don't know the number anymore? Nobody. Almost nobody. And it's funny because I have people tell me, who here has a landline still? I'm just because I'm going to be polite, I'm not going to say why.
Wasted my money.
But notice it's none of the millennials.
I know.
So
What is a landline?
High five on that one, good. So here's the thing. So people say, well, I call but nobody's home. Who has a landline anymore? The phone is always here. So the phone is ringing where it's supposed to ring. But there's a secret how to get them to answer that call. And obviously, if they don't know me, I got to do something special for them to figure that out. But here's the problem. You learn, you're having fun, everything's going up, the enjoyment to the effort is all good, and then all of a sudden, no one's replying to my calls. No one is answering the phone. Nobody's calling me up to tell me that they want to sell me their house, and then you get discouraged, right? But I'm going to tell you something else, that real estate is cumulative, okay? Everything that you do, if you do it consistently, real estate is cumulative, which means that think about this, if I went, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And let's just say that there was only 10 in here, because I'm going to make this very easy for a guy who can't think after 8 o'clock. Every week, I have a meeting like this, and I invite 10 realtors to come in, and I give them all my card, and I tell them what I'm looking for. Week 1. Week 2, I do it again, so I got 20. Week 3, I got 30. 30 realtors out there finding properties for me. By week 4, I got 40. By the end of the year, this is copywritten, sir. You can't copy this. By the end of 1 year, I will have spoken, and now I have 520 realtors that know who I am and do that. Same thing with the mail hours, same thing with the networking. Real estate is cumulative. So if I do this, and let's say that this is 6 months, right? At 6 months, I've got, 260 people out there who have my business card, and I said, stuff doesn't work. And that's what happens 90% of the time to real estate investors, especially because they go to a lot of these seminars that they say, well, the only way it's going to work is if I go spend another $20,000 and join their university, and then they do that and they don't teach them enough to really, really, really do it. And so that's why I want to talk about the dip. And it's a book. It's a book that I read. The author is Seth Godin, and I highly recommend it. When I read the book, the book is not about real estate, but he might as well have written it for me in real estate, because I have been through the dip. But here's Godin, G-O-D-I-N.
Spell it. G-O-D-I-N.
If you were French, it would be Godin.
He's a well-known internet
He's a business advisor, very, very well known, very good. And so here's what happens. There is inevitably going to be a dip in your future, no matter what you do. In fact, many of you probably have felt it in other areas. There is a dip. But if I work through that dip and I continue to let real estate be cumulative, if I continue, real estate is a numbers game, and I continue to make offers and I continue to do that, what will happen is that I'll come out and then all of a sudden I will get paid in dividends for all of that effort. And so the premise of the book is that you will go through a dip. that when we grow up, we are often told that only losers quit, right? Quitters are losers and losers are quitters, that winners never quit and quitters never win, that kind of story. And the book says that's bull. That's bull, because the thing is actually winners are really good quitters, because they don't quit here, they quit here. They figure out and they don't do the things that aren't going to lead to what ultimately they want to do. And so that's why, I asked in the beginning, why are you here? Why do you really want to get into real estate? Why not be a day trader? Why not buy and sell Bitcoin? There's lots of different ways to make money. Why real estate? And I think I answered some of the questions, because real estate is the ideal investment. It is a essential. People need food, shelter, and housing. The big businesses that never go away are food, shelter, and housing. And then for the 5 reasons that I gave you before. So I wanted to say this because I don't want anybody that's in this room, that you guys took the time out to do this, I don't want any of you to start in this and then feel like, you know what, this is too hard. It doesn't really work. That only works on TV. And most of what you see on TV, the flippers, it's all bull.
Yeah.
A lot of that is manufactured. It's for the effect. So anyway, any questions about that? Because at this point I want to stop the theory part of things, because now I want to get into the real nitty gritty.
What part do companies fit in on this ladder? Because I know of companies that will buy, I feel, they'll like buy out like neighborhoods almost, like for gentrification purposes. Where do they fit in on the buying?
Great question, because and that's the other big shift that happened in this, the Great Recession that happened. Before the Great Recession, you heard things like banks don't want the properties, right? Banks are not in real estate. Who still believes that that's true? Banks know that real estate is a really good investment, which is probably why all the biggest and nicest buildings have bank names on top of them, banks and insurance companies. But the big change also that happened is that banks started taking those properties back and renting them. They formed separate funds, and now what used to be only a Wall Street term, now most people have heard of hedge funds. And hedge funds are just special funds, people who raise a bunch of money and they buy a bunch of houses. And then companies like Capstone or BlackRock and Invitation Homes, and those are just a few of them, that now bought and own a ton of houses. And they were buying and paying 100%. Why could they pay 100% as a smart hedge fund? Because they bought it back in 2008, 2009. So people are going like crazy, like, man, I'm selling to this hedge fund. They're buying up everything that they can, because they were buying it here and here, just that they understood the curve coming ahead of them. So some of them actually did the rehab, but most of them bought right here. They bought here because they wanted these two things, because they know that back then what they were looking for is, most investors like you and I would say at the individual level, we're looking for rates of return of 10%, 12%, which is a great rate of return. I mean, compare that to your CDs and anything else with relatively little risk. And they were buying at that time at 6% cap rates. And you're like going like, how crazy, and every time you say that, how crazy is the bank or how crazy is the hedge fund, ask yourself a different question. And not as, how crazy are they, or what do they see that I don't see? Why are they doing that? Because they have the best of the best in academia, they have the best graduates, the MBAs, they have all of those resources, and they're not planning for next year. They're not planning for, the next 6 months. The hedge funds say, we're going to buy for the next 10 years. And in 10 years, we're going to turn around, and then they figured their cap rates were not based on the 6 months. Their cap rates were based on the 6 years. And now you're starting to see those invitation homes, and some of them, they're selling their properties. They bought it on weakness and sold it into strength. How crazy are they? How crazy are they? So, did I answer your question?
Yes.
Good.
Thank you.
Because they're out there. And so the days of this being the home of only the mom and pops is gone. It's over. So you have to be a better investor today than ever before. But I have a little sign over my desk, and the sign reads this. It says, "It's not the big that eat the small. It's the fast that eat the slow." And so the big hedge funds, while they have more money and everything, they're slow. Okay, they move slowly, they act slowly, they're very deliberate. And so if you are deliberate but fast, you will beat them to the deals. And a great source of income is to be this person who finds this and sells to them over and over and over. Like you could have an endless buyer. And you hear a lot of these seminars saying that you need this giant buyers list. And it's good to have a big buyers list. And I'm going to show you how to get a big buyers list fairly quickly. But you're going to find out, the good old 80-20 rule again, that 80% of your properties, if you're in this business and if you know your place in the ladder, then 80% of your properties will probably be sold to the same 20% of your clients, other investors, other funds. That's $1 million idea right there. So that's the dip. And so now I go from the ladder to the dip and now to the flip, or the I flip. And so what I want to do is I'm gonna transition out of the theory. Did I bring everybody with me on the theory? That I didn't leave anybody behind? Thank you. Any questions? Anybody have an aha in this conversation? Raise your hand if you had an aha.
If I can ask a question.
Yes.
On the first portion of being a founder and networker.
Yes.
What are the qualifications, or what do you think would be the best way for that person to be able to master that area? Because I believe probably that's where you may have to do a lot of work.
Yes.
What are the
But I look for people who are not afraid to do work, who are not afraid to work, who are out and about, because I get a lot of my advantage and intel because I'm constantly in the field. I have, and this will be a subject for a completely other night, in another meeting, but I believe in and I hate to use the word bird dogs, but bird dogs are invaluable. So this person could be known as a bird dog. And I have like 10 different types of bird dogs. I call my Uber dogs. So I have Uber drivers who are out and about. Pardon me?
That's smart.
Yes. Uber drivers, why are they Uber drivers?
Money, they need money.
They need money, right? They're motivated to get money, and they don't sit on their butt at home watching TV. They say, I got time, and I got flexible time, which is one of the beautiful, genius things about Uber, is that they can work when they can. Mothers can do it, students can do it, all types of people can do it, and they're out and about. So every time I take an Uber to the airport, from the airport in the cities that I'm in, I always strike up a conversation. I says, are you an Uber driver? Are you full time? What do you do? And why are you doing this? I think I knew the answer to that question. But I said, how would you like to make a little bit extra money? I'm here in town visiting, and I'm looking at some properties. I imagine, Andre, that during the course of your day, going back and forth, you probably drive by some for sale by owner signs and some empty houses with the tall grass and everything, right? Of course. How would you like to make some extra money pointing those properties out to me? Just snap a picture, type in the address, and text it to me, and then I'll pay you for that. So that's my Uber dogs. And I've got my mail dogs, the postal carriers. I've got, so I got my Uber dogs, my Lyft dogs. I've got my plumber dogs, my air conditioning dogs. I've got my, all sorts of people that are out there, out and about. I have people that if I told you who they were, you would be amazed. From MDs to guys that, for example, the credit card servicing for your restaurants. There's people, there's reps that go from restaurant to restaurant or business to business that call me up and say, hey, on my way to this stop, to that stop. So somebody who's out and about, and I have like I said, I have a whole strategy just on that, and that's a great way to get into the business, because zero cash, zero credit, and it's really 100% effort, right? But you team up with the right person, or the right person teams up with me, it's a golden opportunity. Good question. Any other questions? I'm either doing a great job or a terrible job, and I want to take a temperature check right now.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you. It's enlightening. Cool. So, I now dub the MBAs in the real estate market right now. So you probably have more insight than the average person does, and if you took good notes and absorbed this, that should open up your eyes to opportunities. One of the things that's also very important as you start looking for properties is, you ever experienced it, like you bought a red car and all of a sudden you're driving around, you realize how many other red cars there are? When you start thinking about real estate deals, what's very weird, what happens, and I kid around and I say it's like a curse, because I drive by and I see all the vacant houses in the neighborhoods. They're like the zombies that are coming out, right? I see dead people. But and the fact is that when you're in real estate, you hear things and there's like little key words, and all of a sudden you're standing at CVS getting ready to check out, and the person in front of you says, yeah, I can't believe the Joneses, they just up and left. And right? And normally if you were standing in line and you heard somebody said that, what does that mean? And I go, hey, where do you live? What happened to the Joneses? Well, they got divorced, and the husband just ran away, and then all of a sudden now you know certain things to say to them, and next thing you know, you found out about a deal that isn't on the MLS. And I'm always looking for deals that aren't on the MLS yet. First of all, because I can get the MLS whenever I want, but number two, everybody can get the MLS. Yes?
What about CoStar and LoopNet?
For the commercial world, those are great sources. LoopNet is good. CoStar is expensive. It's a high price, very limited access. LoopNet has an open free version, plus you have the premium paid version. But again, same thing, because LoopNet is sort of the MLS of the commercial world, right? And so if you can get it before then, but still very few people, relatively speaking, know of those services.
Right, so my question was kind of like, those are just as invaluable as the MLSs, would you say?
They're less invaluable, which is a sort of a diminutive negative.
Right, yeah, gotcha.
But because less people know it, number one, and number two, commercial is a little more sophisticated, so you weed out a lot of people. So I would still use it, and I didn't say that I don't use the MLS, but I would say that a good investor probably has 10 to 20% of what he buys comes from the MLS. 90% comes from not on the MLS. But there's little MLS tricks also for that. So the best sources are word of mouth. The best sources are word of mouth. I'll give you an example. I was just up just outside of Orlando, and I was looking in a neighborhood which I had determined was the right zip code, the right neighborhood, and I was going to certain houses. And picture like the typical Fort Lauderdale, the 3-bedroom, 2-bath, concrete block houses. Then you see like a row of them, the ones that were built back in the 70s and 80s. And so there's this row of houses, and in front of one of the houses is this big giant tree. The tree is grown up so much that you can't even barely see the house. But my radar spotted that house, so I went specifically to that house, and when I go up under the branches and around the tree, it's wide open. It's the ultimate open house. The house was literally unlocked, windows open, and you could just walk right in. There was nobody there. It was a true vacant house in the pure definition of an open house. So I see some people across the street come out, they were curious what I was doing in that vacant house. And so I told them, you know, that I go around and I find these properties, I buy them, I fix them, and then I resell them to other people, and I put families in the houses. And she said, oh, that's very nice and everything. And I said, well, do you know what's going on with this house? Oh, the lady died 4 years ago. 4 years ago, that house has been sitting there empty, unnoticed by anybody. And I, an out-of-towner with good tools, found that house, and I have a competition of how many? Zero. And I have the ladies across the street giving me all the intel that I need, that I can't find that on any computer system or subscription service. So while I'm talking to this lady, another girl is curious about what we're doing, and now there's a little group coming up, and she goes, hey, what do you guys do? And I said, well, you know, we buy houses and we fix them up and we put families in them. And she goes, oh, maybe you want my grandmother's house. She just died a year ago and nobody wants it. The house has been sitting for a year in a completely different neighborhood. So it wasn't even in the area that I want, but will I buy a good deal in a neighborhood that I'm not looking in? Heck yeah, if I can make money on it. And so that was a situation where I had the phone number of the owner and a family that basically says, yeah, it would be nice if someone else lived in it, and because they didn't believe that there was any equity. When the grandparents died, there was just not equity in there, and it was of no interest to them.
How do you know what qualifies as a good deal? Do you have to know like the neighborhood that the house is in? Do you have to know information about?
Yes.
the
Yes,
location?
and I'm going to get into that in a little bit when we start talking about iFlip, because that's really the three most important things. If you really embrace this idea and decide to get into real estate, the three most important things that you want to be doing is finding deals, finding prospects, I should say. Number one. Number two, evaluating them for what would be a good deal, and is it me, the buyer, or is it the seller that determines if it's a good deal?
The buyer.
Yes. Yeah. Because a lot of people say, well, their asking price is not a good deal. Well, it's not a good deal what they're asking, but if they take my offer, it'll be a good deal. So you have to understand you have to go in and know what the value of the neighborhood is. So you have to know how to do your own comps. And that's very easy nowadays. So you figure out what the value is, and then you know how much I can offer depending on where on the ladder I am. So let's see if the computer has stayed with me and the internet is still up. I'm going to go ahead. Any other questions? Cool. So
finding the prospect, evaluating the problem. What was the third thing? You said there were three things.
making offers. So find prospects, evaluate the deals for what is a good deal, and make the offer. And it's a numbers game. I'm going to tell you that you got to make lots of offers, right? It's like drilling for oil. You know, not every drill hits oil, but when you hit oil, it's a profit. And we were basically drilling for deals all the time. And the better you are at drilling and finding places to drill, which is kind of like what I do, is I figure out, I shouldn't drill in the middle of the desert if there's no, the geology isn't prone to forming oil. There's places that are good and there's places that aren't. That's why, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, and those places have oil. France does not. So the idea for this workshop came out of the fact that I talk all the time about the 4 pillars of real estate. And the 4 pillars, and now let's make it more basic. Take all the theory and the concept, and let's talk about what you really need in real estate. What you really need in real estate, number 1, is supply. That's the first and most important thing. No supply, no start. But to make a profit in real estate, I also need demand. So one of the things that I go and search for, do you guys mind if I take my jacket off? Because I'm burning up. So the concept is that I only want to, there's certain things where deals tend to happen. There's also certain things that you have to have supply and you have to have demand. And I don't want just any supply and any demand, but I want a balance. The best economies have a balance of supply and demand. Before I was telling you, I don't want to run up because that's not sustainable. If I have too much supply and no demand, I'm going to find great deals. This was my life in 2009 and 2010. Lots of supply. People were giving away houses. But I couldn't sell it to anybody because nobody wanted to know about it. They weren't even paying attention to the news and what was going on. They just, real estate, no. Fast forward, today, we got tons of demand and not enough supply. So now what happens, real estate investors are equally frustrated because now they can't find the deals. If they could find one, they could sell it. But they can't find the deals. So I don't want to be in either one of those two extremes. I actually want to look for a place where there's a good number of supply and there's a good number of demand. And that way all I have to do is say, Nastasia, Andre, exchange checks. Right? And that's my job. And if I know how to do that very well, then I can have a business. And if I do it over and over, like I was saying, it's a numbers game. So pillar number 1 is supply. Pillar number 2 is demand. And when I say supply, I want to be able to have the resources, a tool that helps me to find those properties. I want to have a tool that finds the buyers. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
That I could do a lot of this sitting at a computer anywhere in the world. And that's why I can travel all the time and still do business. What do you think the third pillar is?
Network.
You're onto it. Not the answer, but close. I'm talking about tools.
The money.
That's the number one reason. In fact, I used to do these kind of workshops to much larger rooms back in the 2002, 2003, 50, 100 people in the room. And I would always start out the workshop by saying, who here likes real estate? And 100% of the people, well, they came to see real estate, so the odds were stacked. But it doesn't matter. I could be at a condo association meeting, and I say, who here believes that real estate is a good investment? You're going to raise a hand. Who here believes that real estate is a good investment? Right? 100% of the room, basically. And then I say, okay, well, besides the home that you live in, who here has investment real estate? Raise your hand. And 1/3 of the room would still raise their hand, but 60% of the room didn't. What happened? I thought you guys all said that real estate was a good investment. And then I say, okay, well, tell me why that you don't own investment real estate. And the number one reason always would come about, and by the way, this was back in 2002, 2003, when once again, you could fog a mirror, you could get a loan. So it really wasn't the money. And I'll tell you today, it's not the money. It's not the money. Because nobody said that it had to be your money. Right? Andre and I could partner. I've got the money. We can buy. I might not have the money. Andre has the money. We can buy. Me and Andre may not have the money, but we know where to get the money. We can buy. And so one of the pillars is funding. You gotta, if you don't have it, and I'll tell you that you're a better investor when you don't use yours. And the rate of return goes up when you don't use yours. That's where the leverage comes in. So that's the third pillar. And now, how about the fourth pillar? So now I got these moving parts, and they're like spinning molecules. You know, all the buyers spinning all around here. I got all the sellers spinning all around here. I've got, sources of money spinning out here. I got properties spinning out over here. In the beginning, and when I'm working on one deal, I can do this with a Post-it note. But what happens when I have 50 properties that I'm following? How do you keep track of 50 properties, 50 buyers, and 50 sellers? 50 lenders. Systems. And I would tell you that probably more than anything else is what keeps real estate investors either from starting and doing anything successful, and if they even get off and do their first deal, the minute that they try to scale up and they don't have a system, they crash. And I can't tell you how many people I've met that say, I did a flip once, it was okay, but it's just too much work. You mean you were too disorganized? You didn't have a system. And that's what I want to talk about here. So what I do on the radio show, of course, I give you little snippets and pieces of all the different aspects. Mondays we talk about the business. Tuesdays we talk about the tools, tips, and the actual techniques that we do. Wednesdays we talk about the market. You see sort of a common pattern here. Thursdays I talk about the financing and credit. And then Friday I kind of wrap it all up, and then I try to take all that together and focus it. So there's definitely a method to the madness for the real estate show. And now what I want to show you is a product that I'm trying to think of exactly how many years ago it was, but it was in the 2012-13 when I was starting to get everything kind of going back again. I went out and I looked for a software program myself that I could track my business in. And I wanted something that would track the buyers, it would track the sellers, would track the rehabs, the budgets in the process. That would track a lot of different things. And at that time, there were only about 3 different players in the market. Today, there's a couple more, but I'll tell you that I did my research and I did my homework, and I bought the system called iFlip, which back then had just been developed. I think they had written the program about 2 years before, so I had a much more rudimentary version of it than what you guys are going to see here today. And the difference of having that system and being able to track that stuff, and then have something that would remind me, like when are my inspection periods up, when are my contracts, when do they expire, when does Loretta, who said, no, I'm not ready to sell now, but I will. Call me back April 15th. Another Post-it note? I don't think that's going to work. And so that is what the iFlip system does. And then I wanted it all to be integrated. So I wanted to work in one place, because what I was doing before that was lots of Excel spreadsheets. And a spreadsheet of buyers, a spreadsheet of sellers, a spreadsheet of properties and everything, and then a spreadsheet for my budget. And next thing you know, I got a spreadsheet of all my spreadsheets. And so this all changed. And then, of course, the gentleman, and you hear me talk about him all the time, Cameron Dunlap, who wrote the program, who is also an investor, who is the real deal, right? He's out there doing deals as well. And so he wrote the program for who? For himself, and realized that this is pretty good. I bet you I could sell it. And that's the story behind it. And I had bought it, and then I met him at an event where he was a speaker. Went up to him, and that's how our relationship. And now today I work with him. I've been very closely working with him for about 4 years, where we're basically on each other's speed dial, and he comes and speaks. We have a very good relationship. Let me just put it that way. And so a lot of the input I have input that has changed the program, stuff that I use, and he's very, very good with customer service. He's got a great support team, a U.S. support team. In other words, the support team is actually in his office in upstate New York. He has a house here in Florida and a house in upstate New York. I'm frequently up there, and so when a program needs to be changed, it's walk into the other room. Let's change the program. And so anyway, let's get down into it. And what I wanted to do is give you sort of a little bit of a demonstration on this and let you see for yourself. So there's more to it than iFlip, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you a demonstration version. So when you first log into the 4-pillar system, I see fine. I see that it probably timed out here. The power. See that even I outlast the TVs.
say you do on Tuesdays for the radio show?
Tools, tips,
Tools?
and I listen every day.
Gotcha.
Tools, tips, and techniques.
Techniques.
So I wanted to literally share. Thanks.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What happened to Don McCloy? I used to be on Thursday with you. What happened
Yep.
to him?
Dan McCoy is my IT guy.
Yeah, I know.
And for a long time, we're still good friends. And in fact, his son is one of my VAs. He's the one who posts all the radio shows. And so Dan taught his son, his 16-year-old son, to be an IT tech with him. And he's a great little entrepreneur. And so I made him my IT guy, and I fired Dan. No, Dan fired himself. And but it's a really neat experience for his son. And Dan is working on other things. He still helps me with all of my computer stuff and everything. But I wanted to bring, we both wanted to do things a little bit differently. He wanted to focus more on his IT business, which is really what he does. What he did with helping me on the air with IT was a courtesy. It was a friendship thing.
Right.
And so now his son does most of the stuff, manages, protects. He does my backups.
Oh.
He does everything from New Jersey. So my whole business depends on a 16-year-old.
They're the ones that know.
Exactly. Yeah, I have a question. I text him. He takes good care of it and everything. So he's there. He's around. And he may pop up from time to time.
Oh.
Dan and I, we talk probably at least once a month. So I'm going to go into, and so there, when you get the 4 Pillars program, there is, here you see funding, and so we have funding, and it's very special because we have a way to help you fund deals, particularly for short-term transactions. You heard of people with proof of funds letters, and you've heard that a lot of those proof of funds letters are just the paper that they're written on. In fact, for most of those guys, you might as well just print your own version of a proof of funds letter because there's nothing to be verified. In this case here, we have set up a fund, and there's actual bank statements that are provided upon request for real proof of funds for any deals up to $600,000. So anybody that is part of the 4 Pillars program has that access, and I'll help you guys show you how to do that. I'm not going to go too deep into that, but that's one of the critical things. Where I'm going to spend the time today is here on the iFlip, which is the CRM, the Customer Relationship Manager. It is the software, it is the glue that is everything, and you'll see that in just a second. The other thing is you'll see here something called the cash buyer data feed. Can you guys see that all okay? No? Okay. So trust me, because I'm going to get into each one of those. I'm just kind of pointing down what I would call sort of the index page here, the panel. So there's a cash buyer data feed. Data feed means it's constantly being updated by accessing the public records and some other sources, but you can go and find out who bought a property where no mortgage was listed, because when you record a mortgage, that's public records too. So if I look at properties where no mortgage is recorded, what kind of a buyer was that? Cash buyer. So instead of the way that when I started in this business, I used to have to go down to the courthouse and look record by record. Mortgage, no. Mortgage, no. And then you would start to figure out certain people were frequent cash buyers, but I only needed a couple of cash buyers, remember, to do this. Now I have an endless supply. In fact, just to give you a little bit of a peek, I'm going to show you that since you can't read this. The cash buyer data feed, what it does is that I have it set to Florida. I'm looking at Broward County, and I can dial it into a city if I want to get specific about the city, or a zip code. Throw me a zip code out there where one of you live. Where, Plantation. 3?
33322.
Okay. So, and then I can go like just into 0 distance from that 3321, or I can say, I'll accept maybe anybody out to 20 miles from there. So I can dial it in. But let's just go just in your zip code. You can see that in Broward County, there's 3,375 cash buyers. with a history, proven, factual history of buying properties for cash. Oh, I forgot to tell you. And this is only over the last quarter. Okay, so this data is updated monthly, but it's sort of like a rolling 3 months. So it's only the recent cash buyers, because a guy who bought properties for cash 20 years ago, is that good information? No. A guy who bought cash 3 months ago, that's good information. So that's what I got here. So that's the cash buyer data feed, and it even, and so I'm going to dial it into just plantation. Just in plantation 33321, right?
22. 33322. 33322.
There you go. So in the humble little hamlet of Plantation, there are 83 cash buyers just in the last 90 days.
I'm not one of them. Isn't that a shame?
Well, let's see, because down here are the names of each one of them. So right here, I have who the cash buyer is, a phone number, and if there's a phone number available that I can, scrape from different sources, it's there. The mailing address of where the cash buyer is. So if I don't have their letter, if I don't have their phone, I can send them a letter. That's the zip code for where they live or work. And this is the property. Think about this for just a second. This is the property that they bought for cash, and the zip code that it's in. Remember, we asked for all the properties in the 33. This is the 9-digit, so I can actually go searching them a little bit further. The square footage, if it's reported, most of them are not reported, and what the purchase price was from the public records. So not only can I go and find the cash buyers in that area, I can see what they're buying, right? I can plug this into Google and see whether this is a house, a condo, I can do my little market research and figure out how much that property is worth, and then see what they paid. And now I know, if I want to, the funnest way to be an investor, what if I had a buyer who says, here's my shopping list, go buy me this, and you can mark it up. You can, as long as you sell it to me for, let's say, 70 cents on the dollar. So if I knew that you, Edwin, bought properties at 70 cents on the dollar, and I can go out and find them at 60 cents on the dollar, what else do I need to know about business? This is not calculus or complicated business. This is arithmetic. I go out and I go find every house that I can find in Plantation that I can buy for 60 cents on the dollar. Edwin will buy. And there's guys with deep pockets. And maybe Edwin will only buy 4. But then Edwin, who does Edwin usually hang around with? Birds of a feather usually flock together. So I'll go, Edwin, who do you play golf with? Right? So I have that intel sitting in my office wherever I am. And I can figure out, before I even talk to Edwin, I say, Edwin, I saw that you bought a house over at 8024 Northwest 29th Street. And I saw that you paid $120. Well done, Edwin. If I found you another one, would you be interested? And Edwin's going, yeah. How's that for a business? Is that a valuable tool? So that's the cash buyer data feed. That's my demand. And a little dirty little secret is when I go into those secret zip codes that I look in, I check first to see if there's cash buyers there. If there's no cash buyers there, I don't even have to know anything about that area. I just know that the smart money ain't going there. I'm not going to be dumb money. Right? A lot of people say, well, there's a lot of cash buyers over there. Why would you go there? It's too competitive. Well, if I got good supply, I want to go where the demand is, right? And if they already know from history, then I know exactly where to buy. So that's the cash buyer data feed. Any questions about that?
Just one question. Can I sort the list?
Yes. Thank you for that answering. So every one of those. So if I wanted to sort them by name alphabetically,
Yes.
There's Abram at the top.
Yes, because in that case, maybe it's one investor that buy during the 3 months, 7 houses.
Mm-hmm.
So it's different to the one that bought.
So let's go down to the ends and let's see, is Nanette here? So I can sort down and look at those. I can sort it by price. Any one of these columns, it will automatically sort it. Great question, and that's an important feature. So I use the cash buyer for a couple of different things. Number one is to find the cash buyer. Number two, to measure the temperature of the demand in that area. I also use it because I figured out that I can go back and reverse calculate what the purchase price is in relative to the value. So I know pretty much what they're buying and what the going investor rate is.
Could you tell me how many cash buyers are in my zip code?
Yeah. For no extra charge, tell me what your zip code is.
33484.
33484. Let me see if so I see a cluster automatically, so I know that they're there. Only 139. By the way, only is, I'm being sarcastic, because how many do you need to sell a house? One. So you got backup orders for 138.
You're selling to people with cash buyers, or you are using them as your metrics to be able to.
If I'm here,
Right.
I'm looking for cash buyers, and I don't care who they are, because the cash buyer could be this guy, a landlord who's buying up properties to keep for rentals,
Yes.
or it could be a guy who's buying.
Doing for rehab.
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't know, but I because I know those where the ladder is, when I see that he paid 80% of the value for the property, I know what kind of a buyer he is too, because I know the profile. So that's the cash buyer data feed. That's pillar number one. Pillar number two is
Does that only show up residential, or does it show up commercial too?
residential.
That's it.
And that's because that's the way the program was designed to be. That information exists, just not here. So, forever, one of the sources, and you saw that I have an expanded list, you saw that there was an absentee owner. Absentee owners are another very interesting clientele to pursue, because people who own a house here but live there often have a problem managing the house here. Tenants don't behave the same when the landlords are not very local. It's a pain to fix things, etc. So absentee owners are an element of motivation that I was talking about before. But there's a really big motivation is when the owner doesn't live there and the house is empty. That's even worse. Because at least when the tenant was there, someone was paying electric, someone was paying the water, someone was paying hopefully the mortgage and the taxes. When the house is empty, you get some very motivated people. And so this part of the four pillars is probably one of my favorite secret weapons. And this here, through various techniques, by people change of address, turning utilities, water on or off, turning electric on, I can remotely determine a high probability that it's vacant. Not for sure. So part of my method is I go and find out where the high probability is, and then either me or one of my scouts will go and verify that property for me. I see the wheels turning in Edwin's head. He's like going, "Ooh, this is cool. This is cool." And let me tell you, yes, it is very cool. So that's the vacant house data feed. So that's the supply. So you ever heard the expression, where there's smoke, there's fire? So, pardon me?
Sun Tzu.
Exactly, the art of war. And so if there's a cluster of vacant homes, there's probably something going on, an employment issue, or what I often find out is that at entry-level homes, people are very fragile financially because usually they buy as much as they can afford. So one thing goes wrong, everything goes wrong. They buy with two incomes. A divorce happens, that house can't be supported on two incomes. So entry-level homes, not war zone homes, but entry-level homes are a really good place to watch. And then when I can see clusters of vacant houses, it's very cool. Now I won't have time today, and I will in some of our future Four Pillars meetings, I don't have time to go in, but I can filter them down that I only want houses with minimum bedrooms, minimum bathrooms, minimum square feet, minimum years built, date of last purchase. There's some little secret tweaks that we'll talk about just in the sake of time, and I'm watching the time, that I won't be able to get into. But so now I've covered supply, I've covered demand, I talked about the funding briefly, so there's 3 pillars. And then the third thing that I want to go into in the remaining time that we have is the iFlip, which is the glue that pulls it all together. Because I can now, the way that this program is written up, I have an iFlip, I have an offer generator. I can automatically generate offers right from my computer and email them out right away. So the iFlip here, this is like opening the store. Every morning I wake up and when I first bring up iFlip, it's a calendar. It's a calendar that's tied to my buyers, tied to my sellers, tied to my properties, that if I say, this property, remind me to go see it on October 15th, it will pop up and it'll be on the calendar for me to do that. So isn't that what when we wake up in the morning, it's kind of like, what day is today? What should I be doing? And so that happens. Then on the left-hand side, you see recent activity. It says new seller lead. So from one of my websites, which are also integrated with the iFlip program, and by the way, it comes with the program. So I have buyers websites, and if you want to look at it, if you look at Mac sells houses, you hear me talking about those. I have a website for buyers. And notice it's called Mac, which is my company, sells houses. So a buyer would come to that website, and I'll show you in a second what that website looks like. Somebody gets attracted to my website and signs up for information about a property. He comes in, and in the morning I see right away that I have a lead, and then I can go over here under my leads. See, I have my prospect, my property leads, full list of property leads, sellers, buyers, bird dogs, and I can add any type of lead there. So the program tells me, number one, when I've got new activity, it automatically flags me. The program also reminds me, so that, you know, the worst thing you have is you have a buyer and I go, oh, shoot, I lost that piece of paper that buyer called me on. I wrote it down on something, and then next thing you know, now it's time, my house is ready to sell. And where was that buyer's number? Can't find it. And that's a very frustrating situation, which doesn't happen anymore when you have this. So I have new seller leads, new buyer leads, whatever it is, it'll tell me a property lead was added, a new buyer lead was added, a new seller lead was added. And so when I open the store, right, because this is my business, I open the store and I see what is it that's on my calendar that I have to do, if there's anything urgent, and then who do I need to speak to in order to transact my business. Now, another thing that people want to keep track of is like, what should I be working on today? Right? Remember I said that the number one thing that you're supposed to do, and so over here, here's a tab called Deal Flow. And if I click on Deal Flow, what comes up is my dashboard. And what you'll see here is a list, new leads. So I have 34 new leads to work on right now. I have 10, remember I said what the 3 most important things are? Get leads coming in, find prospects, evaluate them, make offers, and then if they get accepted, I either hold them or I wholesale them. And then I keep track of how many deals that are sold. So right here, in this order. So if you didn't have a system, right now you have one. And I'm going to show you in an example how I'll take one lead that came in, I'll contact them, I'll do the evaluation right inside of iFlip. iFlip has its own property evaluation algorithm. And then I decide how much I want to offer, and then I can, from inside my system, send out an offer to a realtor, to a seller, to anybody, literally in 5 minutes.
How do you get the appraised value?
in here, I'll show you really quick, we'll do it. There's a comp tool in here that does comps for the property. So you put in the address and it'll automatically search for properties, and then you look at the ones that have the same similar square footage, similar area, and so forth.
Sold price and all.
Pardon me?
It will give you the sold of that?
Yes.
In that area?
Right, because I always look, because comparable, you always want to look at sales, not what's for sale, because for sale is a dream. What's sold is a fact. A buyer, ready, willing, and able buyer, and ready, willing, and able seller did that. So, and this takes me right through the entire process of what I need to do, and I never lose track of any of them. Who thinks that that would be very interesting and useful to have? Who thinks that that would make a difference in your real estate investing if you had that tool, right?
Do a lot of realtors, actual realtors, have that? Or
No.
not many? Or is there other competitors that have anything?
Well, realtors have their own MLS, which has the ability to do comp tools, but
But not.
the MLS doesn't just arbitrarily list vacant houses for you, right?
Well, that
This
buyer data thing.
they don't have that either. No, they don't have that. If a realtor really understood this would be a killer tool.
Right.
If I was in the retail real estate market, I would use this and I would eat people's lunches.
I think also the difference is that a realtor's primary purpose is to facilitate a sale. And investor, you don't have to have a real estate sales license.
Yeah.
And you have a different purpose, which is investments.
In one of our other meetings, I'll tell you that realtors and investors are worlds apart. Worlds apart. Just to scratch the surface, and I can go on and on about this. And whenever I get a realtor who comes in to be an investor, I go, oh man, I got to bring them from the dark side. Because a realtor's mentality, like you said, is to get the highest and best price for their seller, which is at odds usually with an investor. Now, an investor, most people think that all an investor wants is the lowest price, but the investor really wants value. I might want cash flow. So price is not really the fundamental thing, but it often is. So right off the bat, I'm at odds with a real estate agent, right? And real estate agents, I don't understand. I honestly don't understand a real estate agent that's been in the business for more than 5 years that doesn't own investment property. It's the stuff you sell.
I know.
You know, I want to smack them. You know, and I can't tell you how many people that I come across that says, yeah, I've been in the business for 25 years. And do you know, when I was in the retail business, I would buy properties. You know, I hear one realtor say, yeah, I've got a client, they're getting divorced and they need to get rid of it. I'll take it. I'll take it.
I think it's the agency aspect of the relationship, the fiduciary responsibility. They legally cannot.
Yes, they can.
violate.
As long as it's fully disclosed.
Right.
And that's the
Right,
the
yes.
challenge, is that like realtors get shy and they said, you know, if I tell them that I want to buy it for a discount, they won't sell it to me. Yes, they will if they have a problem, right? And if I disclose, you know, and people say, well, aren't you taking advantage of people? And I go, no, first of all, let's get one thing very, very clear. I did not create the problem, right? I didn't cause the divorce. I didn't cause the death in the family, I promise. And so I didn't cause the problem, but I might be one of the only people, especially when they have a house that's destroyed. Banks won't finance it, so the average person can't buy that house. And the only person who can buy that house is somebody that can write a check. And I may be there. In fact, I can tell you that from people who have given me houses, that like the girl I told you with the grandmother, it would be so nice to see that house come back alive. And that house, I hear people say this as if like houses had lives. That house deserves a nice family. And that's cool. And I believe that it does too. And it's better for the community. Everything you do. I sleep like a baby at night. And that whole argument, oh, the investors are taking advantage of people and everything. Not if you do it the right way and you disclose everything. I'm all about full disclosure. It is 100% legal, ethical, and beneficial to do this.
In this system, I should check 2 points. one, the system gives you the demographics, right, of the investors.
Yes.
Is there anything that gives you any information about the psychographics of the investors?
Define
Because I
that.
think again, I understand this matter more than the average person, but I would say, if I take the demographics and analyze what the people have bought, and I have the address of the person, I can have the psychographics.
Right, and I think that that's outside of the scope of what we want to do, but I think you hit on a really good point, which is now that if I am going to do this as a business, right, then what I did tell you that the number one thing that you need to be doing is generating more leads. Well, now based on what you're talking about, I can develop a process, a marketing plan based on the habits and the behaviors and the more likelihood that I'm going to find more even beyond the list.
Because I like to give another name to that ladder, and that's called psychographics.
Okay.
That is psychographics.
I love that idea because I can charge more for
Here,
it.
not for my own benefit.
I'm going to call it, instead of the ladder, which is like I can charge like $1.
To realize that what that ladder is psychographics.
Yep. So now the price just went up. So thank you. So a couple of details on this, and I'm going to be true to you guys. Remember, this is really a beta, right? I'm kind of learning what you guys really want and where you want to focus, and I want to make sure that I answer every one of your questions. And I also want to tell you, I have this a training about the 4 pillars that is done probably once or twice a day that we do it online. And so some of you have seen it, and when you go there is, if you were to buy these components, and they're sold separately, or they're sold as this package as 4 pillars. And I'm not here really in a mode to sell, but what I'm trying to do is make it available. And if you buy it as a package, and you can't buy this, realtors, if they knew this has existed all the time, they would probably be more interested, at least a certain segment of them, because there's a lot of good data in here. Every vacant house is a potential listing. That's why I said I would clean up. I would be the #1 lister, which I was the #3 lister in 2010 for all of Exit Realty in the state of Florida, and that was before I had this. So I know that if I had this and did that, I would almost feel guilty. Almost. So each one of these components, so if you like one section of this and only one section, so you could buy this and I can help you to buy it. Like I said, I have a very good relationship with Cam, and I'd be happy to help that you get it. One of the things that I wanted to do before I finish up, I want to show you that if you'd gone to the online version of the 4 pillars, at the end I show you how you can buy it. And this system, in fact, let me just go there just really quick, and this will be sort of a shameless, then I want to come back to this because I want to show you one more thing. But where is it here? I think it signed me out. Here. So at the end of the online 4 pillars training, it will go into an explanation of everything that you got and what it would cost if you bought it separately. For example, the vacant house data feed is $99 a month, just for the vacant house data feed, if that's all you wanted. That would be a value of $100 or $1,100, almost $1,200 a year. The proof of funds backed by actual cash in the bank, they charge about $200 a month to have access to basically have an on-demand. It's better than qualifying for a mortgage and having a line of credit standing by, because functionally it's the same thing. That's basically $2,400. The no-fee transaction funding, that is actually sending over, wire transferring the money on the day of closing for you to be able to buy a wholesale deal, one that you're going to immediately resell. But for you to actually have somebody wire over 100,000, 200,000 for a day or two, it's called a transactional funding. That there, well, what would the price be? You know, to have basically a rich uncle that would back you every time you wanted to buy a piece of property. The next thing is the iFlip, which is the CRM itself there. You see that there, I think it's $89 a month if you buy just the automation system, not already integrated. And one of the cool things about when we put the 4 pillars system together is that it's already hardwired together. So when I get a lead from the vacant house, I don't have to retype it, then put it into my thing. I can literally, there's a button that says push it to iFlip, and it'll push it to iFlip. So push it to the comp tool so I can develop the comps there. Access to the vacant house at Foreclosure University. Cam does a 3-day presentation, and he does it at different places around the country. Last weekend he was in Oklahoma City, and once a year you'll see him here in the Orlando area, and who knows where it is because it moves around. But it's 3 days, and a digital recording version of it is online here in the system. So I can actually watch any part of that 3-day, and it is in-depth stuff. Okay, most people would pay, depending on which or seminar company, you could pay $3,000 to $10,000 just for a 3-day event, and there's great stuff in that course there. The tickets to those, if you want to go to a live one, a real one, you'll get 2 tickets to that as part of the 4 pillar system. And one of the things that's also really interesting, and if you go back to my dashboard, you'll see that, let's see, over here, if you look where my cursor is right here, it says real estate skip trace. Well, what happens when you find a vacant house? The person's dead, the relatives are nowhere to be found. How do you find that person in order to start negotiating on the house? Why do you think that house sat there for 4 years and nobody bought it? Because nobody knew where they were, right? The heirs probably don't care. They might have successful jobs in New York and Los Angeles, and a little $100,000 house in the west coast of Florida isn't important to them, especially because they have memories that it's an old house that's more of a hassle and they don't have time for it. Imagine having right there as part of the system the ability to pull up and skip trace. Does anybody want me to skip trace them right here live in front of everybody? Find out what kind of stuff I can find out about you. I can literally find out people's phone numbers, emails. It'll tell me whether there's any arrest records or any judgments or liens. And by the way, a judgment or a lien is a great way to help find somebody. Okay? I routinely go into other people's cities, and I came home this weekend and I was saying, like, I feel like I know them, right? It's like a life interrupted. There was the father. He worked for Anheuser-Busch for 35 years. He was born in Indiana and moved down to Tampa 60 years ago. True story. He has 3 kids. I know their ages. I know their names. And I know where they live. Remember I talked about the unfair advantage? I almost feel guilty. But it's kind of cool. And and as you can see, all I have to do is put somebody's name in here. Who do you know that you want to skip trace? Because I don't want to do somebody here because I don't want to be the one that brings up bad news.
Do a random name.
A random name?
Cameron Hunter.
Well.
You can put my name.
Oh.
Okay.
All right. Look at that. Look what popped up. His business address right there.
I can't see it.
It says, look, I found them. And if I want to view, I can download and I can print the full dossier.
Okay.
And
What does it say?
He's a brave character. Other names, Eric Rowland, look, you have Eric Wilner, E. Wilner, aliases, hey, he's got aliases.
Yeah, but it's also an Eric A. Wilner, that's not I.
0 bankruptcies, age 81. By the way, now you guys can send him a birthday present. April 30th, 1936. And check this out here. 6 liens, that means mortgages and things like that. A bunch of addresses.
But the interesting thing is that there are addresses here that,
See the dates?
I have this situation with the credit reports. There's some addresses that,
See possible relatives?
But it doesn't specify children, right? It doesn't say.
No. You got to dig a little bit deeper. So let's say I was looking for someone who is deceased. So then I will go into the possible relatives and then I'll skip trace them. Again, sitting from my office.
Wow.
And I can skip trace every one. Why do you think I've got this list of all your names? No. But I don't need much information to get.
down again and I can see.
Look at all.
Curious man.
There's phone numbers here that he has and phone numbers that he had.
Yeah.
There's emails there that he has or that he had.
Are
And-
there emails for the relatives too?
When I skip trace them. And not always, but it's getting more and more. And in fact, there is a more detailed one that I can even pull up social media, like your Facebook page and your LinkedIn page from this.
Can you
But-
you can't do a search based on birthdays, right? To
Yep.
pull up people that are born yeah, you can.
Yes. Privacy is dead. Okay. So I just wanted to give you sort of a taste for that, not to, lay somebody out there out in the open. So this includes those. By the way, that was a light skip trace. I have 2 levels of skip trace. That was light, which is part of the information, and that report's probably about 10 pages long, or 5-6 pages long, maybe 10. If I go into my in-depth skip trace, it's about 40 pages. And then it pulls up vehicle registrations and things like that I will find you. I can find you,
So you could be a part private investigator with this.
Well, I say that to a lot of my clients. It says, okay, now we're going into detective mode. Because now we identified these houses, which are clearly vacant and unwanted. Now we're going to go into detective mode, and we're going to go find the people so that we can present an offer. I'm presenting an offer competing against nobody. What do you think that's worth? Right? If you could call a lawyer to pull up this, right? And he'll charge you $250 an hour. Far more than what this costs per year. So there's 10 right here. I just want to point out there's 10 comprehensive skip traces for the harder to find people. You got the vacant house foreclosure. There's a whole CD of how to find vacant houses and how to specialize in what I think is one of the best little niche areas of real estate to really find and buy equity up front. The blueprint for success, which is a really cool sort of a map of how, what do I do next? Then what do I do next? So if you weren't following what I was just saying, there's sort of a little graph for you to follow what that is. The purchase and sale agreement, which is, there's another course on how to understand and interpret the contract and how to write good contracts. And so I never added up all this stuff, but there's probably, if you were to add up all this stuff, there's probably over $10,000 worth of things that come with this system. And this system, there's 2 things that I want to tell you about. The first thing is that if you bought this system today, and it's $14.97 total, and that gives you access to everything for an entire year. Okay, it's literally like 10 cents on the dollar. It's a tremendous value, and if you really are serious about real estate, I'm going to tell you 2 things. Number 1 is that you wouldn't pass up doing something like this, and if you would like to purchase, anybody interested in taking a step forward? Cool. because the real beta test for me was to see, number one, I imagined, quite honestly, that everybody that would show up tonight would have already seen the online version, and there's no real. I encourage you to go see it, but I gave you way more meat tonight than I do in my 1 hour online class.
I have seen it about 3 times before for my education. So, and I say it is easy to understand and it's interesting.
Right, and so it's there, and you're welcome to go take a look at it.
And then you just go to the site and they assign a time and a date.
Right. So if you go to my website, my main website is automaticlandlord.com, which a whole different side of my business has been in the area of property management and building up a rental portfolio and how to have rentals without losing your hair. Right? Rentals, most people are afraid of rentals, and I can show you how to do it and do it basically with a couple hours a week, a couple hours a month, literally. Less than that per property. You can manage a lot of properties with just a couple of hours if you do it the automatic landlord way, which is a whole different area. But if you go to my website, Automatic Landlord, and there's a button at the top that says 4 Pillars Training, and it'll take you to see that webinar whenever the next one is that we do, and the schedule is on the website. So all you have to do is go to 4
Now,
Pillars.
I recommend you see. Now, I also wanted to comment, because I know the answer, but if a person heard this tonight and was motivated, when would the person make the first dollar? How long would it?
We have people that do it in as little as 30 days, which, by the way, is phenomenal.
How many, and again, I'm asking this question rhetorically.
I would say the average, though, probably more like 60 to 90 days to get yourself ramped up and really into it. So that would be more realistic. But people have done it literally in weeks. And
Now, if the person is crazy like I, that's great. When I do one thing, I do one thing. And that's how many hours a day would I need to spend so I start making money in 30 days?
there's a little boy that needs to get put to bed, so.
Good night.
So to go back to your question, a person who's motivated and serious.
That's motivated and is willing to dedicate himself as a one thing.
Mhm.
It's an interesting book, which I also recommend to everybody, which is written by Realtors. One of the key phase real estate. And how many hours a day would I have to study to start making a few dollars in 30 days?
It's a great question, and I'm going to change it a little bit, because how many hours do they need to study? And I'm going to say very little. I think that people waste and spend too much time reading theoretical books. But better is, I'm going to say that you should plan to dedicate a minimum of 10 hours a week to start to make money in 30 days.
The principle that I want to bring out is that the formula for success is not to study. The formula to success is study and do, study and do,
Right.
study and do. And what I want.
So combining the two, 10 hours a week, you should be ready to commit that. If you can do more, better, because then you accelerate yourself. But if you cannot commit 10 hours a week.
And said that I'll spend 10 hours a week or whatever it needs, what is a chunk that I would address to make the first dollar in 30 days?
10 hours a week.
Yeah, but what is, on these various modules is the one that I would study first?
What?
Maybe saying that it doesn't take any studying.
No, it does take, We gotta conceptually understand two
So,
things.
so the way that when I work with my regular clients, and the reason why I wanted to do this is because what I wanted to do, and this is purely a test, and I don't even know that I'm going to do it forever. What I want to do is I want to get and create what I call my inner circle of a few groups of people here locally that I'm going to meet on a regular basis, and I will instruct, do this, study this week, and that is the 10-hour week. You're looking for a different answer, but I am providing
my
here.
answer is very logical. Is the first thing I would do is take whatever it takes to finding prospects.
Correct.
That's the first thing I would do. And then how many hours do I need to have sufficient competency to execute that, to do that?
Well, I guess it would depend on the individual.
10 hours a week, and I will distribute.
I
I'm not going to
don't
give you
do it
the
in
answer
1
that you want. I'm going to tell you
10
what
hours
works.
I do in 1 day. Okay?
Pardon me?
10 hours I do in 1 day.
Well, so you have to spend an hour with me first to figure out what it is that you need to do, and that's what I'm trying to set up is these study group masterminds, and then from there I will basically walk people through the process of what works. Thanks for coming.
Another
Yep.
little boy gotta go to sleep.
Yep.
No.
Yeah, I'm gonna
I
wrap
got
it up pretty.
Something to take care of, but I'm definitely gonna get back in touch with you guys. I love the program. It sounds fantastic.
Super.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Edwin.
Nice to see you.
So, and I'm just about wrapped up as well. So what I'm proposing to do and what I'm looking for is some people here locally that want to get together on a regular basis, and then follow this system, which I will help them to implement. But the only thing about it is that you have to have the system in order to do this, because I'm not going to work with somebody that is going to work off of Post-it notes and in a haphazard way.
So you
So-
have to have the system to participate in any part of
In
the
what I'm going to create is a mastermind of that we're going to get together on a regular basis, and then we're going to go over and I'm going to teach this system from a practical get properties bought and sold method. If you follow my system, you will buy and sell properties.
I just have a couple of questions.
Okay.
I
No.
get confused very easily.
Based on your system, what do you think will be an average return on investment over a year on somebody that consistently going according to the 10 hours a week that you said will be able to
I mean, if you're doing your job,
generate? over
When
a
you
year?
say return on investment, what are you investing?
Meaning, let's say, how much revenue can you make? You probably invest maybe just a few dollars or
Well, first,
$1,500 to
first
be able to
it's
start.
$1,500.
But you start getting into houses, you're buying something 60% or whatever per day.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you think in terms of revenue can somebody make with that substantially over a year? For example, making the average of 10 hours that you recommended a week.
I will tell you that depending on how effective you are during those 10 hours a week, it's hard for me to give you an exact figure because some people just kill it, and they make 6 figures in their first year. Okay? There are people that, get over analytical and take longer. The average wholesale deal is probably going to be somewhere between $5,000 and $12,000. So if you did one a month, it'll range
Okay.
between $60,000 and $150,000 a year. That I would say is very attainable, and the numbers can be much bigger. And then again, in the mastermind, I'm going to go way deeper than this. I mean, I wanted to keep this really within the 2 hours. Some people have to drive all the way back to Miami. Some people have kids, and I don't want to kill myself either. So, but that's kind of what you can expect.
Okay.
And again, it's the 80-20 rule applies.
Yes.
You know, and you'll find, I think I'm being very candid, that 80% of the people, you know, end up getting distracted. But if you're focused, this is, for me, it's a lifestyle change. I don't do anything but real estate. But I do a lot of real estate. Did that answer your question? Give you a good feel? And because when you said return on investment, if I'm putting up zero cash, the return is infinite. So if you're asking for a percentage-wise,
It's even if you don't put money, sometimes your sweat equity is
Right.
part of your return on investment as well. So cool.
I'll tell you this beats working, but it is work,
Oh.
right? It's effort. It's but if you know, a lot of this to me is is almost like a game. You know, tracking people down. It's a lot of fun. You know, seeing different properties. For me, there's no same day at the office. You know, dealing with investors, it's nice.
So the mantra is out and about.
Yes.
I like that.
Any other questions? You said you had some more questions.
Yeah, okay, so does your road dogs make any money from this?
Absolutely.
Okay,
And
But they're
some
not on
of
this
some of my
scale.
dogs become investors.
okay. So
'Cause-
your road dogs make money for finding homes for you, but they're
Right.
not on here. They're not participating in the buying process.
They would participate many times in the wholesaling.
Okay. So they would
Some
get
some as a
percentage.
flat fee per lead, and I work out, have different deals with different people. Sometimes I pay them per referral per lead. Sometimes I'll pay them based on the deals that become sales. And then some of them decide, say, hey, listen, I had some extra money. What if I put some money into this? And then they become investors.
Your program, I thought that your program found vacant homes. So your program doesn't find vacant homes, or it does too?
It does.
So it also finds vacant homes, and then you have additional people.
Well, it finds likely vacant homes,
Okay.
but, you know, since I'm doing, it's all data, I would say that it's probably more than 70% accurate, but I need to verify it. And before I want to invest in making offers, I want to make sure that it's vacant. But the bottom line, really, the bottom line is I need to contact the owner of the property. And that's why I go verify if it's vacant, then I know it's got a higher sense of motivation, which I'm likely to get a better deal there. So I had a quick question because, and this goes back to the beginning, and then I'm going to wrap it up. What I will do is two things. First of all, I want to see if I was true and if I did what I said I was going to do. Did I teach you and learn how to buy good investment properties?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did I explain what is the 4 pillars?
Yes.
Did I show you a track to follow?
Yes.
Did I talk about real estate as an investment?
Yes.
And did I have the Wilmer factor? Well, cool. Good. Then I at least feel like I delivered. I'm happy. What I will do is number one is that, you know, I'm not, like I said, I'm not here selling. If you guys are interested, you can I'll email you a link to that order form so that you don't have to watch the whole seminar. But I'll also tell you that you can watch the whole seminar, which will end up at the same link where you can purchase the 4 pillars. And then what I will be doing is announcing, because in addition to some of the people here in the room, a number of people that I have talked with before have purchased the 4 pillars before, that watched the seminar, and they're going to be, everybody that has, I'm going to do this as a mastermind that will meet on a regular basis, but the only thing is that you got to have the tools. I can't carry everybody on my tools. You got to have the tools, plus it's your business. The idea is that I'm going to teach you how to have your own business.
So, what if you had bought the tool but you never used the tool? Like I did.
Yeah, and because I know
like
that.
I did.
And remember, you have it for a whole year.
I know.
So it's still good, and you're automatically invited.
Okay.
I kind of counted that you would be.
The part I don't understand is the money transaction thing. Like you put up, I don't know where the money's coming from, but all right, they put up the money. How is both my name and the person that puts up the money and the contract, or how do I pay them back?
Probably not on the contract, but usually what happens is that you'll set up like an LLC for a deal.
Right,
And that LLC will buy and sell the deal. And depending on what your percentage ownership of the LLC, that when the deal gets sold, you get your percentage, the other investor, whoever else puts up money, gets their percentages. Instead of having 5 names on a contract, you would just have one entity. It's like a partnership.
You have an LLC for each deal?
LLC costs about $100, $130 to set up. And we're not talking about, you can reuse the same LLC
Sure.
in a partnership, so that's why you would.
So if it's just yourself, do you need to recreate a new
No.
LLC every time, or
No,
just
I
use
reuse the same one. As a wholesaler, I have one LLC just for wholesaling.
Okay.
And the neat thing about it is that that LLC doesn't own anything for very long. So there's no liability.
No liability.
So everything keep reusing the same LLC over and over
Okay.
as the buying LLC. Now, a whole different conversation when I buy a property to hold, that each property gets its own LLC and it stays that way.
Okay, that was my next question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
But that's not very expensive.
No. It's a small cost of doing business, but it's a cost of doing business.
Yeah.
And this is a business.
It's under $150 a year.
Correct. So if I started this mastermind starting in September, who here would like to be part of that? If I raise a hand.
Me is the distance.
I'm not automatically qualified because you have it.
I think I understand 2 things, set the time apart and put about $2,000 on the table, right?
It's $1,400, $1,500.
15.
Yeah, $1,500 for the system.
I just rounded up.
Okay.
How
These big spenders. Yeah. Anybody got change for 1,000?
With deep pockets, then it's a different issue.
I think
How often?
everybody here.
Pardon me?
How often are you gonna have class?
I'm thinking of getting together once a month. Once a month, probably maybe more often by phone, but once a month actually getting together, demonstrating actual deals and then working like you bring a deal, you need some help on it. We work on it as a group, so everybody learns by all the things that happen each time in each transaction, and that accelerates the learning curve.
So, I'm sorry for changing the course of what you're talking about, but as a wholesaler, you said that you don't need any cash or credit to do it, and it's because of the proof of funds that you can get from your website?
Right.
Okay. Just trying to make
From the system.
From your system.
Right. Well, thank you. What I will do is since I have all your emails, I'll send you the link to my website, and I'll send you the link to this there, and then and it'll be an invitation. I'll probably set up the date that we'll be having the first meeting next month, and I hope to see you guys back there again.
May I just leave everybody with one thought? Invest 2 hours and see the online, if you haven't been twice. See it,
Twice, right. Look at it.
see it twice, and then make the decision to go in, so you know what you're talking about.
Some people already made the decision. They don't have to spend the extra 2 hours. Some if you made the decision, go make the decision. But you're welcome to see it. It's regularly scheduled.
Yeah, so.
But if you're on the fence, definitely look at it over and because you'll probably hear different things than you heard tonight. Today was designed to be different than the online version.
You're funny.
Pardon me?
No, my mother.
Pardon me?
It was fascinating.
It is
Thank you.
very eye-opening.
I have a question.
I promised you that it was going to be like nothing you've seen. Yes.
May I ask a question that's unrelated to real estate?
Sure. I might not be able to answer it. But...
Well, I was talking with an associate of mine who has a business. It's a placement service where she places individuals into like assisted living or independent living.
Mhm.
And so the residents that she's placing live in Florida, but she usually deals with their children who typically are out of state. Do you think that particular program might benefit her to find their children that are out of state?
To find places for them, or are you just talking about
To
the
find-
skip trace?
Yeah, the skip trace, to find the
But you can
children.
probably get-
If, quite honestly, if the only purpose was to skip trace them, I can give you some other programs that I use that are unbundled, that would give them access to find, but there's definitely stuff that would help your friend.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
So, okay, my mom.
I told you I wasn't here just to sell.
My mother already has it. So, what do I do if I wanted to?
Be really nice to her.
What do I do if I wanted to like learn about it? Do I just like plug it in and go on my
Yeah,
laptop and figure it out
'cause
myself?
She has the access and everything to hers, and then come with her to the mastermind stuff. But the like in the system is already the foreclosure university.
So it has like programs that can teach me.
There's a bunch of tutorial stuff in there already. Lots of good information. Yeah.
Do you have any
And if you, yes, please.